Rev up your engines! Here we have a car where the owner didn't listen to anything I said. He did two things wrong. He bought a car at Carvana and he bought a Volkswagen. But in his case, I'm saying he actually made a smart move. So what is up here? Well, we'll start with the main thing, what's under the hood. The TDI engine. Turbo diesel for those who don't know. 65 miles a gallon on a reasonable sized car. And yes, this was one of the dieselgate Volkswagens. But this one was fixed before he bought the car from Carvana. He paid $12,500 for it with 35,000 miles. Now he's got 80,000 miles. The only thing he had go on other than changing the oil filter is he did have a half shaft and the front drive shaft go bad. But he had purchased the extended Carvana warranty and Volkswagen did that. It was $2,000, but it didn't cost him anything. In this case, buying an extended warranty, you're buying a Volkswagen, not that bad of an idea. The Dieselgate came about because Volkswagen had a dual software system so that it would get the best gas mileage and power when you're just driving around. When it was being tested on a dynamometer, it went into a different mode. And so it would pass the emissions. Then we go back to running at better fuel economy, more power when you were just driving down the road. Now they're still paying for some of that stuff, but it didn't mean anything was inherently wrong with these diesel engines. Now these turbo diesel engines can last a long time. I have personally seen them with over 500,000 miles on them. And I know all you haters out there are going to say, oh, Scotty's a hypocrite. He says don't buy four-cylinder engines with turbos. Blah, they won't last. This is a four-cylinder with a turbo, but it's a diesel engine. Diesel engines have immensely more pressure than gasoline engines. They're extremely heavy duty built. Diesel 18-wheelers can go a million miles. They have to be so strong that the pressure inside the engine ignites the fuel without any spark. A turbo doesn't matter with a good diesel engine. Diesel engines have turbos for ages. Now, take that Chevy Sonic I made a video about a few months ago. Hey, that thing had 65,000 miles on it and the engine went out in it. Yes, little bitty piece of crap GM with a turbo, and it was gasoline. They can't take it, but diesel engines have had turbos for decades with no problems at all because they are overbuilt engines. Truthfully, being diesels, they don't get out of their own way if they don't have a turbo. I had a guy bring me an original Rabbit diesel over here last year. Even he said, what a turd. He measured it on a dyno and it put out like 40 horsepower to the wheels. That's all that it had. It's got a real nice interior. And my favorite, it's a standard transmission. You get that turbo diesel in the standard. You got plenty of zip. Back seat's got a lot of space. Got a decent trunk. Start this diesel up and take a listen. Now it definitely sounds like a diesel, but it's a subdued diesel. It's got the diesel sound. It's not all that loud. Believe me, Volkswagen's been perfecting these diesel engines for decades. But here's the real kicker. I'm at the smelly end. It really doesn't smell much different than a gasoline car. They don't put out the stench that they used to. And the interesting thing about this design is, when you start this baby ice cold first thing in the morning, it actually blows 50-degree air out of there until the engine warms up. They're not the old smoking, stinking monsters they used to be. Now, he uses it for Ubering. And as he said, he could put 100,000 miles on this. He's got 20 more to go and still have hundreds of thousands of miles left. That's what these diesels are made for. Go to Europe, where do you see diesel taxis all over the place? So for what he paid, he's actually making money on the car. You know, he's one of the few people on the planet that bought a Volkswagen, and he's actually making money and not throwing hardly anything into repairs on the vehicle. He's mad because the headliner's starting to go out. And he says he's got an 06 Blazer that's still, the headliner's in good shape. So he's mad at Volkswagen for this. But since he's got the 6-speed standard transmission and not some kind of dual clutch monstrosity that can cost $5-6 grand when the automated transmission goes out, I wouldn't be shocked at all if he got 400,000 or 500,000 miles out of this. And like he said to me, say something happens to the engine and the transmission, he can get a tranny from the salvage yards for $500. He can get a diesel engine for $1,200-1,500 that can last and last and last. But you don't go to the dealer and buy those things. People wreck cars all the time. So let's take it for a spin, see how it does. Now the first thing you notice, it doesn't shake at all. This isn't the bellowing, smoke, shaking diesel. They're smooth. Being a German car, it really handles quite well. This thing is made with suspension and tires that you can corner like that. But for a diesel, really, it's not that slow. Granted, this vehicle was made in Mexico. Habla Deutsch? But of course, the engine and transmission was made in Germany. Body parts in Mexico. Well, let's see what this turbocharged diesel can do. Not awe-inspiring, but at the same time, it's not like that Toyota diesel I had that wouldn't get out of its own way, especially cruising. These are made for cruising. You're going 60 and you want to go, just downshift the gear and step on the gas. You get plenty of passing power. Look at how cornrows go by. Got ice cold air conditioning, 65 miles a gallon. What's not to like? Sure, it's a Volkswagen. And yeah, it was bought at Carvana. But that wasn't a bad price because when you think about it, the average American drives an automatic. This is a standard. Like 4% of the population will even drive it. A lot of people don't like diesels. Here you go. You can get a deal on one of these. So Scotty lost his mind saying this Volkswagen from Carvana was a good deal, but no, he's making good money Ubering around with this thing. It can go for a really long time. So much for dieselgate anyway. He lives in Clarksville. They don't inspect cars here. When that diesel particulate filter clogs up, guess what? It's going to be thrown in a garbage can. And it'll probably get a little better gas mileage, and it'll have about, I'd say 10 to 15 more horsepower too. So diesel's not necessarily a bad choice if you pick the right one. This thing was $27,985 when it was new. He got it for $12,500, 35,000 miles. Easily, they go $350. If that's 1/10 of how far it can go, 90% left, and he paid a little bit more than 1/3 the original price of the car, not a bad deal. And here's some bonus questions and answers. Bob101 says, I found a 2002 Mustang GT with a 4.6 V8 and a 5-speed manual tranny. It's 76,000 miles. The guy wants 10 grand. I don't know much about Mustangs. What are the common problems? All right. The common problem is the people who drive them drive like maniacs. That's a standard transmission and a V8 engine, and it's a GT. A lot of times they rag the heck out of the cars. One, I hope it's an older guy who didn't do it. That's a plus. If it's a young guy, I'd be real leery. But regardless of who owned it, you find a guy like me, a real professional mechanic with very fancy scan tools to spend about an hour analyzing with a big fancy scan tool, taking it for a road test, telling you here's what kind of shape it's in. You can't hide from that kind of data. I've got machines that some of those things will pick up over 300 points of data that just analyzes it all. And the cool thing about the machines that we professional mechanics use is the really good ones are color coded. So you might say, okay, Scotty, how are you going to go through 380 bytes of data when you do a road test? Well, one, you record it on a machine. And when you play it back, it's color coded. So if it's normal, great. If it's got a little problem, it's yellow. And if it's a real problem, the data's in red. So you can scan through it fast and then look at any colored data. You have to do that with a car like that because it may have had the heck beat out of it. If not, it can be a good car. But you got to get it tested out by a mechanic who knows what he's doing. It's worth whatever they charge you to check it out because you could get a lemon or you could get a great car, but it's got to be tested out. You can't hide from a mechanic with one of those machines. Mo says, I got a Mazda 6. 2014 with a check engine light on. It's got PO171 and CO301. I cleaned the MAF sensor and it disappeared for a few weeks and it came back. What's the problem? It says it's running lean, but it also has a communication code. Now the communication codes have to deal with the computer, its bus line, not the kind you ride in, information line, where the data goes back and forth between the computer and the sensors and has 3 different speeds, low speed, mid speed, and high speed. That is the real clue to what's probably wrong. When you got a communication code, there's something electronic wrong. Now, you cleaned it. Yeah, it could have been dirty. It might have helped a little. But communication codes are because of electronic failure somewhere down the line. I would say, knowing Mazdas, I just buy a MAF sensor and put it on, a brand new one, and not one made in China, an OEM original equipment MAF sensor. And then you want to pray you don't have a wiring failure or problems in the main computer in the circuit that drives the MAF sensor. Because if you got an electrical problem, it's either the sensor, the wiring, or the circuits in the computer that drive that particular sensor. Pray it's just the MAF sensor. It normally is. But when you got an 8-year-old one, they do wear out over time. Because if it's the wiring or the computer, you're going to need a mechanic to check that, unless you're really good with digital storage oscilloscopes and know how to analyze waveforms. So, but most of the time, just changing that MAF sensor will fix it. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.